This is the news on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
On the news this evening, former Rivers East Senator Andrew Chendu among residents affected by flood in Port Harcourt. EFCC says Lekki now hotbed of cybercrime. Public health expert says plans for compulsory COVID vaccination is legal. And on the foreign scene, police shoot dead violent extremists who stabbed about 6 people in New Zealand. I'm Carl Orakwue with the news. A former Rivers East Senator Andrew Chendu says about 2 of his vehicles were submerged, filling the flooding of his home during the heavy rainfall yesterday. The senator, who lives around GRA Phase 3, says his flooded home has kept him indoors ever since. However, called on the Rivers State government to dredge the Ntawoba Creek to allow for free flow of water around the GRA Phase 3 axis of Port Harcourt. He said the elevation of the Sani Abacha Road during its construction worsened the flooding situation.
I've never seen this type of flooding until this construction work was done. The governor of Rivers knows this compound very, very well. All our political meetings were held here. There was no time any of our invitees found it difficult to access my compound for 17 good years. But since this construction works took place, I started noticing this. Let me please plead with the Rivers State government to come and improve the drainage works here. Unblock all the holes that people built up and dredge the Ntawoba Creek to allow water to flow.
Another resident in Rumigbo area, Happiness Chidinma, says her compound is now filled with snakes after floodwaters trapped her and her extended family at home.
We are here. We saw that the flood was just coming. We thought it's normal. Because that's how it used to flow before now. And after some time, everything will just clear off. But since that yesterday, instead of it to clear, the thing keeps increasing. The whole environment is covered completely. Right now, we cannot come out from the house because as we are even peeping from the house, we see snakes everywhere. So we are helpless right now. And this is our first time of having this kind of experience since we've been living here 2018.
Meanwhile, Rivers State Ethnic Youth Leaders Coalition has blamed the contractor handling the various flyovers in Port Harcourt for the massive flood experienced in the city. The president of the group, Legbosi Yamabana, said the company failed to carry out feasibility study before embarking on construction of roads and flyovers in the state as practiced globally. As you may know, some parts of Port Harcourt have been heavily flooded for 2 days due to heavy downpour. Most streets in old GRA Phase 2 and 3 cannot be accessed by vehicles due to the flood. Moving on, the EFCC says Lekki, the fast-developing upper middle-class area of Lagos metropolis, is emerging as the new hub of internet-related fraud. A statement by the agency says data of its Lagos command for the second quarter of 2021 indicates that Lekki district is the preferred location for all manner of cyber fraud syndicates. It said the command recorded a total of 402 internet-related fraud arrests in 3 months. Still ahead on the news, public health experts say plans for compulsory COVID vaccination is legal. To stay tuned.
This is the news on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
Our Apex Ogoni Social Cultural Organization, Kagote, has called on the Ogoni Liberation Initiative to stop its recent call on the MPDC to begin all exploration in Ogoni land. President Kagote Emmanuel Deya told a news conference in Port Harcourt that the Ogoni Liberation Initiative does not have the legitimacy to speak on behalf of all Ogoni people and cannot decide which company can come into Ogoni land to mine oil. Deya said no Ogoni stakeholder was consulted or called to any meeting where it was agreed that oil exploration should begin in Ogoni land. Deya also said Kagote will call for an expanded meeting of all Ogoni stakeholders to deliberate on oil exploration in Ogoni land. The Kagote president also called for an end to the renewed killings in Ogoni land. In other news, the Vice-Chancellor at University of Port Harcourt, Professor Wunari Judgewill, has advised fresh students of the institution to be consistent in their studies as they begin their academic journey. Professor Judgewill gave this advice during the 42nd matriculation ceremony of the university.
It is a fact that not every student who matriculates goes on to graduate. There are things that happen in between. Therefore, I want to advise you, be consistent at your lectures. Try to understand the concepts of the course you have applied and you have been admitted to study. Do not be in a hurry to make friends, because the friends you make, some of them may make you or they marry you.
Also, some of the matriculants spoke to our correspondent.
I feel very good. I also express quality education and for our lecturers to try their best.
I feel very happy, very, very excited to finally come into school, being a full student of the school.
I feel excited, and I also pray that the school should also help support the students in every way they can do, so that the student will benefit.
I'm happy. It's just like a dream come true, finally inside university and doing my matric, expecting the best from the school, expecting everything the school has to offer for me.
Our correspondent reports that the university admitted a total of 9,531 students, out of which 8,100 have been duly registered. A public health expert, Best Odinoha, says it is constitutional if the federal or state government decides to implement compulsory COVID vaccination for its citizens. And Professor Odinoha, who is the Director, School of Public Health at the University of Port Harcourt, told correspondent Martha Okere that the Public Health Act, which was enacted during the colonial era, was reviewed but without any major changes, as it still allows for compulsory vaccination in a pandemic.
The pandemic has already been declared as an emergency. It means that certain rights can be curtailed. We know about the lockdown, which actually impinges on the people's rights of movement. But it was allowed because it's an emergency. And that is the same thing with the vaccination. Secondly, you know that during the colonial rule, the public health laws were enacted, and since that, it has just been reviewed without significant changes.
Professor Udnoha, however, said health workers would not want to use force, but work with communities by appealing to them to get vaccinated.
It is believed that if you use such coercive force, you will not get the cooperation of members of the community. And in public health, we want to be in the good goods of people. We don't want to force people. Instead, we want to appeal to them. Perhaps put subtle pressure on them by telling them that, if children don't have full immunization, they won't be enrolled in school. If people don't get immunized, perhaps they will be restricted from attending mass social gatherings. It is not that compulsory vaccination is illegal. It's because we don't like to use that method.
Recall that an associate professor of law, Richard Wokocha, has said that it was unconstitutional for the government to implement compulsory vaccination. 3 days ago, a federal high court in Port Harcourt granted an expert order restraining the governor of Edo State, Governor Godwin Obaseki, from enforcing the order mandating all residents of the state to get vaccinated for COVID-19. In business news, International Air Transport Association has identified far-reaching government-imposed travel restrictions as a major factor delaying recovery in international markets. The global airline body said both international and domestic travel showed significant momentum in July compared to June, but pointed out that demand remained far above the pre-COVID-19 pandemic levels. In entertainment news, popular actress Annie Idibia has added her husband's surname back to her Instagram bio. The actress initially removed Idibia from her name, leaving only Annie Macaulay after she accused her husband Two-Face of infidelity. In a now deleted Instagram story post, Annie claimed that Two-Face's family never found her worthy of him despite all her efforts. Annie further claimed that the singer spent nights under the same roof with one of his baby mamas after taking his kids to Disneyland. In sports news, former Arsenal boss Arsene Wenger has called for the World Cup to be held every 2 years. A 71-year-old Frenchman, who's now Director of Development at FIFA, also called for a single annual period of international qualifiers in the global football calendar. Foreign news, police in New Zealand shot and killed a violent extremist after he stabbed and wounded at least 6 people in an Auckland supermarket. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said the incident was a terrorist attack carried out by a Sri Lankan national who was under police surveillance. Ms. Ardern said the man, who has not been identified, was a supporter of the Islamic State terrorist group. Police killed the man within 60 seconds of the attack today. That does it here on the news this evening. But before we go, here's a quick look at the major stories. Earlier on, we told you former Rivers East Senator Andrew Uchendu is among residents heavily affected by flooding in Port Harcourt. The EFCC says Lekki is now a hotbed of cybercrime. A public health expert has said plans that compulsory COVID vaccination is legal. And from the foreign scene, we told you, police have shot dead a violent extremist who stabbed about 6 people in New Zealand. The news was edited by Choma Ezenwafo. For eyewitness reports and breaking news stories, to contact our newsroom on 0818-900-0017. For more stories, do visit www.nigeriainfo.fm. Rainfall continues in Port Harcourt this evening. I am Carl Orakwue. Goodbye.
We connect you to the world. We connect you to the vicinity. We are Nigeria Info.
Listen to me. I said this is a real situation and the government has to do something about it. What are you trying to insinuate? All these people looting Nigeria's money?
This is Nigeria Info in the heart of Nigeria.
92.3.
We are